1977 SAS selection, test week. This is the final week. Past this, and that's the hard part done, although you never take your foot off the gas. However, that's what it was all about. So, test week, I would think 25 to 30% of the guys who started were still there. Some very good guys, different cap badges, you name it. There was Anglians, artillery, engineers, REME, Int Corps, and it goes on. It just shows you that the cross-section of guys that were applying for this SAS selection back then. However, that said, it was just a start. A lot of us had minor injuries and stuff. Some guys were held together with literally masking tape to try and keep them going. Blisters, yeah, we'd had blisters, dealt with them, keep the daily routine going. I was never going to change that. It seemed to work so far, why wouldn't it work in the end? But that was just me. Everybody's got their own way of doing stuff. So 5 different days prior to the big one being long drag at the end, I'll come to in a minute. So there were 5 different time tests, somewhere between 25 to 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers a day. Doesn't sound an awful lot, but now don't forget our weight is 55 pounds. That's just the Bergen weight. Then you've got your belt kit, which has your water and everything else in there. You've then got the SLR, which is a drill purpose one, which is a self-rolling rifle drill purpose. And of course, your water on top of that. So the weight was increasing, arguably each day 70 pound plus, depending. And of course, yes, we've grown used to it, but the light weights now had gone. It's now 55 pound minimum each day until the end. So we were left with, what did we do on the 5 days? Well, there were pre-designated tests which have been tried and tested in the past, and each day would be a different length of route, generally up to a maximum of 30 odd kilometers a day. It doesn't sound a lot, but after the 3 weeks we've just had, running into the test week, it is a lot, trust me. And of course we had all the weather conditions to take into account. The terrain, well, that's never going to change. What you see in front of you is what you meet and what you deal with, what you conquer, if you like. Inhospitable, yes, at times. But that's the way it is. We didn't have the fancy Gore-Tex kit in those days, which was around after that. What we had, basically, is what we stood up in and whatever else you could find that would suit you. Wet weather kit really wasn't wet weather kit. Once I got wet, it was soaking anyway. But this is what we had, and it was equal. Every man had the same. So we've talked about that. The tracking devices for safety, which they use this day and age, we didn't have any of them. The big orange marker panels, everybody gets issued this day and age when they go out and do their selection and stuff. Again, safety, we didn't have any of that at all. What we had is what we stood up in, and what you met in front of you, you dealt with. That was it. So times change. The tests then, as I've said already, minimum of 55 pound plus your weapon and your belt kit. And then on top of that, the distances could vary up until around probably not more than 30 kilometers, which I touched on earlier. We've got all the, for example, day 1 would have been something like 24 kilometers, 55 pounds worth of kit. Penny Fan, the highest point in the Brecon Beacons. From the road up to the top of the Penny Fan, down the far side of Penny Fan to the disused railway track. turn round and come back up, meet the likes of Jacob's Ladder and stuff, and back down to the car park where you started. Yes, it very, very trying. However, as I've stated, the test timings, we had no idea. Go at it as fast as you can. The timings get sorted out later. You never know. You don't stop to look at your watch because you just don't know what the time you're looking for anyway. That would be a waste of time. So that sort of thing went on. Day 2, pretty much the same. Day 3, day 4, turn around and come back up, meet the likes of Jacob's Ladder and stuff, and back down to the car park where you started. Yes, it very, very trying. However, as I've stated, the test timings, we had no idea. Go at it as fast as you can. The timings get sorted out later. You never know. You don't stop to look at your watch because you just don't know what the time you're looking for anyway. That would be a waste of time. So that sort of thing went on. Day 2, pretty much the same. Day 3, day 4. And then each of the days as they finished, and you think you've done remarkably well to yourself, think about the lads that got injured, trying to beat, when you're told to go and do it, and do it in a time, that's exactly what you do. You forget about everything else. However, you're picking up injuries, and then each day, on each test, with the ultimate aim of getting to that final test. If you were still there the next morning, you had a chance. Quite a few were dropping by the wayside by now. However, it's a mind game. The body is ready to quit day by day. You get in that Bedford at the end, and the worst part for me was two hours out from camp to the training area, do your training, 2 hours back at night before you had anything to eat, before you did your feet, before you had a beer. That was the worst part for me. I hated the trip in and out by, in those days, a Bedford 4-tonner. And you had to wait until one of the Bedfords was full before that could go back to camp while the rest were finishing off their marches, and that sort of went on a daily basis. However, the weights didn't change, the distances did change, and that was it. Mind games, yeah, you didn't want to fail. That was the first thing. I didn't want to fail. John Mack didn't want to fail. Many of the other lads, Mink, Jerry, they didn't want to fail. So it literally was, you've got to look after yourself. And of course, that is most paramount. Make sure that you pass what you're trying to do and help anybody else you can on the way. So, the fear of failure is one thing. And then I don't know how much of my DNA and stuff has been left on those hills, up and down Penny Fan, Fan 4, you name it, Corndu, all those big peaks. How many times had I been up and down there on pre-selection, on selection, and even now, and how much of my sweat had been left there to get to the point I am at this point back then when I was doing test week. A lot. And that would be everybody else's as well. There's no skipping it. You can't pass it without actually losing your DNA on those hills. The distances, as I said, they change. You could start at reservoir level, and for those who know Penny Fan and the Brecon Beacons, you know that when you get to the top of those hills and you look down and then you're back up and then you're down and you're back up, there's more of that to come. However, as I've said, that is it. Once you got back to camp after the training, it wasn't so much as pat yourself on the back because until they sorted out who had passed, you didn't know. It was just get on with your daily routine until they came back, everybody was accounted for. Then the instructors did their bit, get together, work out the passes and fails. The fails you probably wouldn't see again because you'd be early start the next morning. By the time you came back, they'd have gone, we called it platform 4, and then back to whence they came. And that didn't take very long at all. All they had to do was hand the kit in. So sometimes you never got to say goodbye to some of the lads you knew. However, the most important thing was you were still there for the following day. And that's how it was. And that just happened to be day in and day out the same. When long drag itself is the next one we're going to cover in a separate video. Long drag is the last endurance test that you will do. We're all back in Hereford, having finished the 5 days as discussed, and I've talked you through that pretty quickly. Once the following day is always an early start, so I'll tell you that. That will be the next video of long drag itself and the story behind it. And that will be coming next. So in the meantime, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rusty Firmin, SAS TV, and Who Dares Wins.